So lining up next to Ryan Lochte, the man that you decided to go after many, many years before, and Michael Phelps, who everybody listening will have heard of.
Yeah.
And we can probably all picture that wingspan photo with every single medal in the world hanging off it.
You know the guy.
How did you, obviously getting through the heats to that point, had you conditioned yourself to just deal with that as this is the job? Or did that, the scale of the event, the challenge of the event, the prowess of the individuals that you were, I guess, privileged to be, well, and had worked very hard to be floating beside, stood beside, whatever the phrase is. What was that feeling like in that moment? Was it purely professional or did it feel different?
I'm very good at switching between professional and just like emotionally that this is really cool. And I think that, you know, I've obviously trained with Ryan for years. I knew him very well. He was a friend of mine. You know, Phelps was a competitor I'd kind of crossed paths with a few times, but it was still very new to me. So to be stood in the call room before that final and saying, that's the world record holder, like that's Michael Phelps. Like, of course, like little kid in me is going to be like, this is really cool. You know, like this is a really special moment, but at the same time, like you are here to do a job. So I gave myself like a little split second here and there to like just appreciate what's about to happen. And I'm rubbing shoulders with like genuinely my idols, the best who have ever done it. Like that, you can't just blank that out. You got to just give yourself a second to be like, this is really cool. Little pat in the back, but like you still got stuff to do. And yeah, like there was never an intimidation or anything. Like, you know, I knew on paper Phelps probably had a better chance of beating me than I did of him. And I was very aware of that, but it didn't mean that, you know, like I say I love racing, I love competing, but when you are doing a swimming race, like it's actually, you're just executing your plan. If the people around you can help elevate that plan, if you're racing eyeball to eyeball, the last 15 meters, like that's great. But at the end of the day, like if you had the blinkers on, it shouldn't matter who's next to you and who's not. Like you're doing your race plan, you're counting your strokes, you're putting in the right effort, you know, different
parts. You can't draft. You can't. There's none of that, is there?
Like that. So it doesn't actually matter who you're racing. It might, you know, make an impact on your race, on the pressure, the nerves, but it shouldn't matter if you're racing your neighbor, if you're racing Michael Phelps. Like you're there to swim in your lane. No one else is in there. You execute your race plan. So at the end of the day, didn't care that I was racing Phelps, but also at the end of the day, pretty cool that I was racing Phelps. So
how did your race go?
Not as well as his. He's I've got he's got an undefeated record against me, let's say. So yeah, I've never managed to pip him in any way, but it was yeah, I think it's also very difficult from like a performance point of view. Like you mentioned swimming, you know, I got to the pinnacle of swimming, but swimming is also a pinnacle sport, whereas like there's one moment in the year essentially where everything needs to happen correctly. And it's crazy that we can even condition our bodies to like over a 12 or over a 4-year period, let's just say, you know, my race lasts less than 2 minutes, sorry. So it's like, how can I get everything to just go perfectly well for those 2 minutes? It's like, it's crazy the fact that that can be the best performance I ever do. So it's very hard to make that the best performance you can ever do. It's like you look at, you know, a lot of the world records in swimming, especially the sprint stuff, the 50 freestyle, none of them are broken in the Olympic final. None of them. They'll be at some domestic competition, maybe the Olympic trials where there's a bit of pressure, but it's not the end of the world if you don't break the world record. So nothing, it's very hard to get it perfectly right, really, when it matters. And I think that's where the greats become great, is that they, you know, like some Michael Phelps, he can break those world records in the Olympic final. You know, there's rising to the occasion, and then there's going above and beyond and making it that the most special race you've ever had. Like looking back at the Commonwealth Games, that was probably my best ever performance. But the pressure was high, but it wasn't make or break. It wasn't like, if I don't win, I'm a failure. It was like, so I could kind of go in there and like, let's see what happens, but also knowing I could do well. So yeah, the race did go. I was very happy with the race. It wasn't my best race. It wasn't my best time, but you know, I got to come away with that feeling proud and feeling like I left it all in the pool.